Hey there, sleepyheads. Welcome back to the channel. Before we drift into tonight's tale of the hidden universe of emotions, I'd love to know, where in the world are you watching from tonight? And what time is it for you right now? Drop it in the comments below. It's always magical seeing how far and wide this sleepy little community reaches. All right, lights low, blankets up. Let's begin. Tonight, we're traveling into a place that isn't quite a kingdom or a world, or even a dream, but something softer, something that breathes quietly beneath it all. It's the invisible ocean flowing through every heart in Ooh, the hidden realm of emotions. If you listen carefully, past the hum of distant stars and the rustle of candy forests, you might feel it, a pulse that moves through every being, every raindrop, every flicker of magic. That is where our story begins. For a long time, the people of Ooh believed that magic came from spells, potions, or ancient runes carved by the wizards of old. But perhaps, long before the first spell was ever spoken, there was something deeper in energy that didn't need words. Something that could be felt, not learned. Emotions. In the land of Ooh, emotions are more than feelings. They are alive. They move like the wind, shaping rivers, mountains, and destinies. When someone feels joy, it spreads like sunlight through their veins, feeding the plants and creatures around them. When someone feels sorrow, the sky listens, and sometimes it rains. It's strange, isn't it? How often we see emotions ripple through the world of Adventure Time without anyone ever calling them by name. Finn's tears can summon crystal rain. Princess Bubblegum's anxiety can make her candy subjects tremble. Marceline's loneliness echoes through her songs, reshaping the mood of entire episodes. And even Jake, with his boundless calm, seems to bend reality just by relaxing. Maybe emotions are the real language of Ooh, an ancient current that all living things share, whether they know it or not. If you imagine Ooh from far above, it might not look like a map or a landscape, but a breathing tapestry of color. Fear glows dark blue, curling like mist around old ruins. Love burns soft pink through forests of memory. Joy shimmers in gold, spilling from campfires and songs. And anger blazes red, buried deep under mountains, waiting for its moment to rise. Perhaps, after the Great Mushroom War, when the surface of Earth was broken and the air was filled with radiation and forgotten dreams, the first new forms of life didn't come from science, but from emotion itself. The leftover feelings of humanity, their guilt, their longing, their love all seeping into the soil, awakening into new beings. Maybe that's why the land of Ooh feels so alive. It isn't just magic that fuels it. It's emotion turned into matter. Even the smallest moments seem to hint at this truth. Think of when Finn is heartbroken, how the color seems to drain from the world around him, as if the environment itself feels his pain. Or when BMO dances, and suddenly the entire room feels lighter, as though joy itself decided to join the fun. The world doesn't just reflect emotion, it participates in it. There's a quiet harmony in that, a reminder that everything in Ooh, from the tiniest candy citizen to the grandest cosmic being, might be part of one vast emotional ecosystem, a living web of feeling. Every tear, every laugh, every sigh adds another note to its unending song. Some of the oldest wizards believed that emotions were the first form of magic, older than elements, older than time. Before the words abracadabra or alchemy were ever spoken, there was simply a vibration, a wave of energy that could soothe, frighten, or inspire. They called it the breath beneath all feelings, the pulse that gave birth to everything. Perhaps that's what we feel when we watch Ooh's heroes face their struggles, that strange, shared connection. Like their feelings awaken something inside us, too. It's as though the show itself is part of the same emotional magic it describes. When Princess Bubblegum creates new life from candy, is she using science or love? When Marceline drains the color from a forest with her melancholy, is it vampiric hunger or grief made visible? And when Finn's courage burns so bright, it pushes back the darkness, is that just bravery or the world responding to his emotion, lending him its strength? Ooh might not need words for these things. It might simply feel. The magic, the creatures, the lands all breathing together in one emotional rhythm. Maybe that's why silence in Adventure Time never feels empty. When the music stops, you can still sense something alive beneath the quiet, like the heartbeat of the world. That's the hidden universe we're exploring tonight. The realm where feelings are not born inside us, but around us, shaping us gently as we sleep. And if emotions truly are alive in Ooh, then somewhere, out there beyond the stars or beneath the grass, they must have forms of their own, spirits that whisper through the living and the lost, the ones who cradle every heartbeat and listen to every tear as it falls. Somewhere deep within that unseen realm, perhaps fear still lingers, the oldest and most watchful of all emotions, guarding the fragile balance between life and stillness. But before we meet fear, we must first learn to listen, to the breath beneath all feelings. If you close your eyes for a moment, you might almost feel it, that quiet breath beneath the world of Ooh. It hums under every stone and every ripple of water, like the earth itself is sighing in its sleep. The people of Ooh may call it magic, but what if that word is only a translation? A way to name something much older, much more intimate. The feeling of the world thinking, dreaming, and feeling alongside them. Long ago, when the land was still waking from its apocalyptic slumber, there were stories whispered among the earliest wanderers, tales of rivers that changed direction when you wept beside them, or forests and it bloomed faster when you laughed. Emotions weren't internal in those days. They were shared. The world listened. The world replied. Perhaps that's why magic in Adventure Time never feels mechanical. It isn't a science of ingredients and formulas. It's intuitive, responsive. When Ice King writes a song about his loneliness, it doesn't just echo through the air. It reshapes his mind, his body, his destiny. When Bubblegum loses her composure, her kingdom trembles with her. When Flame Princess cries, the sky burns with her sorrow. It's as if Ooh has always been quietly alive to every flicker of emotion, letting its people sculpt reality with their hearts. Some wizards once tried to study this, to chart it, to name the shapes that emotions take. But every time they thought they'd captured an answer, the pattern shifted. Because emotions aren't meant to be trapped in bottles or spells. They are the one magic that resists control. A smile cannot be forced, and sorrow cannot be banished by command. They arrive like weather, gentle, unstoppable, ancient. Imagine, then, a map of Ooh, not by geography, but by feeling. The Candy Kingdom glowing with joy's bright pulse. The Nightosphere simmering in the restless energy of anger. The Ice Kingdom whispering the eternal song of sorrow and isolation. And in the quiet center of them all, the tree fort, the still heart where emotion balances itself. Finn and Jake, in their simple joy, are perhaps the steadiest emotional beings in all of Ooh. They don't wield magic, yet they often fix what magic cannot. Maybe that's because they move in harmony with the emotional rhythm of their world, never fighting their feelings, just feeling them fully. When Finn hurts, he cries. When he loves, he leaps without hesitation. And Jake, he reminds us that laughter might be the purest spell there is. Even cosmic entities in Adventure Time seem to respond to emotion. Death speaks with apathy. Life glows with warmth. The cosmic owl appears in dreams touched by fate and feeling. Even GOLB embodiment of chaos reacts not just to thought, but to emotion. When Betty's love meets his destruction, reality bends. Love softens uncreation itself. How could that be, unless emotions are the very fabric that all things are made of? There's a reason why Oo's greatest transformations happen not through intellect or battle, but through moments of emotional truth. When Simon remembers who he is, the Ice King's madness falters. When Marceline faces her loneliness, her power stabilizes. And when Finn learns to forgive, entire timelines seem to heal. These aren't accidents. They're echoes of a deeper order, one that cannot be measured in spells, but only in feeling. The breath beneath all feelings might be what connects every soul in Ooh, the same pulse that keeps the land alive, the trees whispering, the oceans shimmering with memory. It doesn't belong to any single being. It moves through everything, even through the quiet places forgotten by time. In that way, emotions in Ooh are both personal and cosmic. A child's laughter may seem small, but it could ripple into the heart of the world, nudging the seasons toward spring. A single tear might feed the roots of the forest. Every expression, even unnoticed, becomes part of the grand emotional ecosystem, feeding the invisible energy that keeps Ooh awake and dreaming. You can almost see it when you re-watch certain episodes, a subtle shimmer in the air when characters truly feel something. The animation slows, the colors deepen, as if the universe itself is pausing to listen. That is Oo's empathy, its heartbeat. And if you think about it, that might be the reason Adventure Time resonates so deeply with us, even beyond the screen. It speaks in the same emotional language that lives inside us all. We recognize those vibrations because they are part of us. So when Finn lifts his sword against darkness, or Marceline sings softly to her bass, or even when a quiet moment passes between friends, something ancient stirs. The breath beneath the world, the same force that moves stars and seeds, hums softly in agreement. It tells us that everything that feels is alive. Everything that hurts, hopes, or heals belongs to the same great current. And through that current, Ooh remembers us just as we remember it through emotion. And somewhere, in the calm after every battle and the hush after every song, the current deepens, waiting to reveal its oldest form, the first feeling to ever awaken beneath the stars, fear. They say that before there were kingdoms or creatures, before even the stars found their rhythm, there was only stillness. Not silence exactly, but a pause like the universe waiting to take its first breath. And when that breath finally came, it wasn't made of light or sound. It was made of emotion. A faint pulse of feeling that rippled through the void, shaping the first dreams, stirring the first particles into being. Maybe that was the moment when the breath beneath all feelings was born, the first spark of empathy in an otherwise empty cosmos. And from that moment onward, every world that formed, every life that awoke, carried that pulse within it. Ooh, perhaps more than any other, learned to listen to it. It's no wonder that so many of Oo's great mysteries are tied to the heart rather than the mind. Magic Man's madness didn't come from lack of knowledge, but from an emotion gone astray, grief, twisted until it became cruelty. The Ice King's crown doesn't just freeze, it amplifies sorrow until it consumes the self. Even the elementals, candy, slime, ice, and fire are defined as much by feeling as by nature. Sweetness, playfulness, stillness, and passion. Emotion, again, at the root of creation. When you look at Ooh through that lens, everything becomes more intimate. The ground beneath your feet isn't dead, it remembers. The trees sway not only with the wind, but with the echoes of laughter and tears that have passed through them. Every emotion leaves a residue, a whisper, a tiny spark that joins the breath. And maybe that's why Ooh feels so dreamlike. It isn't just a place, it's a collective feeling. Every hill and forest is built from the emotions of the beings who have lived there, loved there, or been lost there. The world has learned to feel for itself, and we, as visitors, simply walk through its memories. Finn and Jake's adventures might then be seen as Oo's way of exploring its own emotions. Their journeys are not random. They are patterns, like a dream working through feelings it doesn't yet understand. Finn embodies the curiosity and hope of Oo, its endless desire to grow, to heal, to know love. Jake embodies its calm acceptance, its humor, its flexibility. Together, they keep the breath steady, never too bright, never too dark. And what happens when the breath wavers? When fear, sorrow, or rage begin to tip the balance? Oo changes. Entire landscapes shift to mirror what its heart is feeling. When fear reigns, forests darken and skies turn to violet. When joy bursts forth, flowers bloom in seconds and candy beings dance without knowing why. The land is as moody as any person because it is a person, in a way. One enormous feeling consciousness dreaming itself alive. Sometimes that dream can feel heavy. You can sense it in the quieter corners in the cold ruins of old human cities, where ghosts of guilt still linger, or in the distant plains where nothing grows, as if grief itself has pressed the soil flat. But then, somewhere nearby, a child laughs, or a song drifts across the breeze, and the weight lifts just a little. The breath begins to move again. There's a beauty in that endless rhythm, the rise and fall of emotion that keeps Oo alive. It mirrors the way we feel, doesn't it? The way our own hearts swell and fade, the way our moods color the world around us. Maybe that's why watching Adventure Time feels strangely comforting. It reminds us that feelings aren't flaws, they're evidence of life, of connection, of the same magic that keeps stars burning and rivers flowing. In some ancient writings, old spell fragments found scattered across what used to be human libraries, there's mention of something called the emotional weave. The texts describe it as a living current flowing beneath every plane of existence. They say that to truly master magic, one must first learn to feel it, to let emotion guide energy like wind filling a sail. Many wizards tried, but few succeeded. The purest emotional magic, after all, can't be forced. It has to come from the heart. Some say that Princess Bubblegum, though she claims to be a scientist, unknowingly draws from this emotional weave every time she creates life. Her candy citizens are more than experiments. They are fragments of her emotional self, spun into color and sugar and song. She doesn't just build them. She feels them into being. Her kingdom, radiant and orderly, might be a reflection of her desire to control her emotions, to create harmony where she once felt chaos. In contrast, Marceline's powers seem to bloom from the rawness of emotion, unrestrained. Her voice, her music, her melancholy, all of it is a form of emotional spellwork. When she sings, she doesn't just express sadness, she releases it, transforming it into something beautiful and timeless. The sound vibrates through Oo like ripples in the emotional ocean, touching everything it passes. So maybe emotions are not only the foundation of magic, but also the bridge between creation and destruction. When love becomes too possessive, it burns like fire. When fear deepens into despair, it freezes into ice. But when emotion flows freely, balanced and acknowledged, it becomes creation itself, art, music, life. And if the breath beneath all feelings truly connects everything, then even cosmic beings, even GOLB, must be shaped by it. What if GOLB is not a god of destruction in the way we imagine, but the embodiment of emotion suppressed too long? The chaos that forms when feelings are ignored, or when the universe itself forgets how to breathe. In that way, Even GOLB might be part of the same emotional cycle, a shadow cast by imbalance, waiting to be soothed. Every being in U, from the smallest snail to the highest deity, contributes to this symphony. Every laugh, every sigh, every dream feeds into the same invisible current. The world feels it all, learns from it, and grows. And somewhere, deep within that flow, there are ancient emotions that have existed since the dawn of everything, guardians and wanderers, sleeping and waking, guiding the tides of feeling across U. The first among them was fear, the oldest emotion, the one that first stirred the universe into awareness. But before we meet that ancient spirit, we must finish our exploration of this breath, the silent heartbeat that ties every creature, every star, and every listener, even you, into one dreaming whole. If you listen closely now as the night settles deeper around you, you might notice how the world seems to breathe. Not in wind or rustling leaves, but in something quieter, a rhythm that feels both within and beyond you. That is the breath beneath all feelings. It's what links every creature of U, every emotion ever felt, into a single living pulse. The wizards who still remember the old ways say that when you feel something deeply enough, joy so strong it blurs your sight, grief so heavy it bends your back, you momentarily touch this hidden current. It's not something you summon. It's something you remember. It's as if emotion isn't created by us, but borrowed from the same endless ocean that flows through every heart in U. There are quiet moments across the series that seem to reveal this. When Finn stares into the sky after a battle, his expression soft, not triumphant, as though he feels the entire weight of what has happened. Or when Simon sits alone, crown in hand, whispering apologies to no one but the air. These are the moments when the breath is visible. The stillness itself seems alive, listening. The world of U holds space for its people to feel without judgment, without hurry. That's what makes U so strangely peaceful, even in its chaos. It accepts every emotion. It doesn't separate joy from sorrow or anger from love. It lets them exist together, the way colors blend in twilight, soft, overlapping, inseparable. Perhaps that's the truest form of magic, the ability to feel without fear. Sometimes we can sense when the breath slows, when the emotions of U grow heavy and the air thickens with quiet ache. During those times, the world seems to dim a little. The sky darkens earlier, the rivers flow more sluggishly. But then something small happens, a song, a smile, a spark of friendship, and the rhythm returns. The breath exhales again, gently restoring balance. Marceline once said that music makes her feel less empty. Maybe that's because sound itself rides on the breath. Every note, every hum, is a vibration of emotion turned physical, an echo of that first universal sigh. When she sings, she's aligning herself with the original pulse of creation, soothing both herself and the world that listens. Princess Bubblegum, too, might understand this on some subconscious level. For all her science and structure, her creations are acts of deep emotional instinct. Each candy citizen carries a trace of her personality, her compassion, even her worries. They are her feelings given form. Every time she builds or fixes something, she is healing herself, and through her the breath of U grows steadier. And then there is Finn, the boy who feels everything. His emotions shift like the seasons, fierce, kind, uncertain, brave. He is U's purest vessel of feeling, the living bridge between humanity and the world's emotional consciousness. Through him, the breath learns empathy again, not just survival or magic, but the quiet, vulnerable act of caring. When Finn forgives those who've hurt him, the land seems to grow gentler. When he cries, the sky joins him. When he laughs, mountains echo back. Ooh responds as if its very soil recognizes his emotional honesty. He doesn't cast spells, yet his heart moves the world more profoundly than any wizard's wand. If you think about it, every episode that touches us most deeply, Simon and Betty's reunion, Bubblegum's rare moments of vulnerability, Marceline's confessions, or even Jake's calm wisdom, all of them circle back to the same truth. Emotion is the real power that shapes Ooh. Not swords, not crowns, not cosmic rules, but the breath beneath them all. And it isn't just confined to the characters. It reaches us too. Every time we feel with them, we add a spark to that same current. The stories become living things fed by our empathy. Maybe that's why the world of Ooh feels endless, because it grows wherever someone feels something genuine. The boundary between fiction and dream blurs, and we become part of its emotional ecosystem, even from far away. There's something deeply soothing in that thought, that emotions are never wasted. Every flicker of love, every shiver of fear, every drop of sorrow becomes part of a larger, breathing story. Nothing disappears. It just changes form, circulating through the heart of Ooh like wind through leaves. And maybe, just maybe, that's the lesson hidden in all of it. That feeling, even when it hurts, is sacred. It connects us to each other, to the land, and to something infinite. Ooh reminds us that it's okay to feel deeply, to let our emotions move through us instead of trapping them. The world is always listening. The breath is always there, waiting to cradle each feeling until it transforms into something new. As the night deepens, you can almost imagine that pulse expanding outward, wrapping the entire world in the soft hum, the gentle exhale of a universe still learning to understand its own heart. That's the breath beneath all feelings, the source of every song, every spell, every dream, the oldest magic of all. And from within that breath, the first great emotion stirs the one that gave birth to the rest. Fear, not cruel or evil, but ancient and knowing. The shadow that made light possible, the spark that taught life how to feel safe. In the next part of our journey, we'll drift closer to it, to listen to the heartbeat of fear itself, the oldest shadow in the hidden universe of emotions. If the breath beneath all feelings is the heartbeat of Ooh, then fear is its very first echo, the tremor that made that heartbeat matter. It's strange to think of fear as something sacred, but perhaps it always was. Before there was love, before there was joy, before anything knew what it meant to be alive, there was a single, trembling awareness. I could lose this. And that quiet realization, the universe took its first cautious breath. In Ooh, fear is everywhere. Not loud or obvious, but woven through everything like shadow under sunlight. You can sense it in the ruins that dot the land, in the trembling air before a storm, even in the flicker of a campfire when the night grows too quiet. It isn't only an emotion here, it's an ancient presence, a spirit that remembers the time when the world itself was still afraid to wake. When the Mushroom War ended, and the human world dissolved into silence, that silence was fear's domain. The radiation, the ghosts, the hollow cities, all of them carried its touch. But fear wasn't cruel. It was careful. It kept the survivors cautious, kept them hiding, waiting. Because sometimes fear is what lets life endure long enough to become something new. If you think about it, almost every great being in Ooh carries a reflection of fear. The Lich, with his cold and endless hunger, isn't just destruction. He's the manifestation of the fear of death, stretched so far that it lost its warmth. Ice King, too, is ruled by fear of loneliness, fear of losing what little memory he has left of Simon. Even Princess Bubblegum, the most rational mind in Ooh, carries her own quiet dread, the fear of losing control, of watching her kingdom crumble. And then there's Finn, His journey is, in many ways, a long conversation with fear. Fear of growing up, fear of being forgotten, fear of not being enough. Yet through him, we see how fear can soften, how it can evolve into understanding. Because when you sit with it long enough, fear reveals something beautiful. It's proof that you care. Some of the oldest stories of Ooh speak of fear not as a monster, but as a caretaker, a great silent guardian that wrapped itself around fragile life in the beginning of time. Its task wasn't to harm, but to teach. Fear taught the creatures of the world to hide from the cold, to seek shelter, to protect what they loved. It was fear that kept fire burning through the long, dark nights, whispering, "Stay awake, stay alive." Even now you can feel that same whisper echoing in Ooh's creatures. The deer in the forest, the candy people, even the ghosts that drift through the graveyards of the old world. They all listen to fear's quiet instructions. It's a rhythm of caution that balances Ooh's more chaotic magic, a reminder that even joy must know boundaries, that creation must also respect survival. But fear in Ooh isn't always gentle. Like all emotions, it has two faces. There's the protective fear that warns, and the consuming fear that devours. The lich, as pure entropy, might be the second face, the one that forgot its origin. It isn't fear itself that destroys, but what happens when fear forgets its purpose, when it stops guarding life and begins trying to erase it. Somewhere deep within the ruins of the old world, there's a legend of a creature made of stillness, a shape that moves only when you look away, born from the collective terror of the first survivors. Some called it the Silent One. Others thought it was a remnant of GOLB's chaos. But there's another theory, that it was fear's shadow, wandering the new world alone, searching for something to protect again. Because when the Mushroom War stripped the earth bare, fear lost its home. It had done its work, and it had kept life alive long enough to see a new dawn. And then suddenly, there was nothing left to protect. So it wandered. Over time, that wandering became the foundation of Ooh's darker corners, the haunted forests, the broken cities, the distant wastelands where no one dares to tread. Those places are fear's memory, etched into the soil. And yet, fear is not cruel to those who understand it. In adventure time, fear often arrives before transformation. Finn's nightmares always teach him something. Marceline's ghosts push her toward healing. Even the terrifying visions sent by the cosmic owl, though frightening, often mark the beginning of growth. Fear is the messenger of change, the cold breeze before a storm that clears the air. It's in the way Finn's hand trembles before he jumps into battle, the hesitation before courage. It's in Princess Bubblegum's sleepless nights, running endless experiments to make sure her world doesn't fall apart. It's in Ice King's eyes when he realizes he's forgotten another name. Fear hums softly through all of it, the first, oldest teacher, reminding them that nothing beautiful lasts forever, and that's exactly what makes it precious. In that sense, fear is not the enemy of life, but its quiet guardian. It keeps the pulse steady, the breath alive. Without it, there would be no reason to hold on, no value in survival, no beauty in bravery. Because bravery, after all, is only born in the presence of fear. Somewhere, deep beneath Ooh's shimmering surface, that ancient spirit still moves patient, endless, and kind in its own way. It watches the living, not to haunt them, but to make sure they keep feeling. Because as long as they can still feel afraid, they can still change. And that, more than anything, is what keeps Ooh alive. Fear, in its truest form, is never gone from Ooh. It's merely quiet, like a slow breath beneath the surface of things. You can almost feel it in the stillness before dawn, in that strange hush that falls over the land right before the sun rises. It's the kind of silence that makes the trees seem to listen. The rivers seem to hold their flow, as though even nature remembers something old and sacred the moment before the world dared to wake again. When you look at O's history through this lens, you start to notice that fear might not just be an emotion, but an elemental current, one of the invisible forces that shape magic itself. The elements. We know fire, ice, candy, and slime each respond to emotion. Flame Princess burns brighter with passion. Ice King's magic deepens with loneliness. And even Slime Princess's realm pulses with restless joy and decay. But fear, it has no kingdom, no visible manifestation. That's what makes it so powerful. It doesn't need a throne because it dwells everywhere inside everything that still remembers what it means to be fragile. Think of Marceline. She was born into a world already lost, a half-demon, half-human child standing between what was and what would be. Her songs often tremble with something that sounds like sorrow, but underneath that is fear, the fear of being alone again, the fear of losing the fragile connections she's built over centuries. Her music, her memories, her love for Simon, all of them orbit this quiet dread. And yet that same fear gives her depth, makes her hold on tighter to the things she cherishes. Even the great entities, GOLB, life and death, seem to dance around fear as if it were a primordial sibling. GOLB represents chaos, the undoing of form, the erasure of meaning. Life, radiant and overflowing, represents the impulse to create and nurture. But in between them lies fear, the threshold between being and non-being. It's the awareness of both forces at once, the trembling realization that existence is fragile and fleeting. Some scholars in Oo's hidden corners, perhaps those who dwell in the depths of Wizard City or study the magical spectrum in the time room, might whisper that fear itself is an ancient elemental, one that was never classified because it doesn't manifest through visible power but through emotion and memory. They call it the fifth breath, the one that lives between the others. Some say it has no physical body, only a voice that speaks through the subconscious, shaping dreams, shaping instinct, shaping the very way creatures respond to the unknown. If that's true, then maybe fear's influence can be seen in the dreamscapes of Ooh in the cosmic owl's realm, where destinies are whispered in trembling visions. When a dream becomes too vivid, too heavy with meaning, it's said that fear is nearby, holding the dream steady so that the dreamer doesn't shatter under the weight of truth. It's a gentle balance, letting mortals peek at eternity, but only for a moment before waking them safely. Finn's dream, in which he meets versions of himself, the child, the hero, the adult, is one of those moments. It's not terror that grips him, but awe. The kind of awe that feels so close to fear they almost merge. That's fear's most mysterious face, not the one that screams, but the one that hums softly in the bones, reminding you how small and temporary everything truly is. If you've ever watched an episode of Adventure Time and felt that strange, quiet ache at the end, that melancholy you can't quite name that's fear too, the fear of endings, of change, of letting go, it lingers after the laughter fades, after the story concludes, like a faint echo that says, you were here, and now it's time to move on. In that way, fear might be the truest link between all souls and Ooh. It connects heroes and villains alike, immortals and gods, ghosts and dreams. It teaches empathy. It humbles kings. It even softens the edges of beings like Peppermint Butler, who tread the delicate line between life and death, knowledge and madness. Fear keeps them cautious, reminds them of limits. Without it, they might forget the meaning of balance. And sometimes, in Oo's still nights, when the wind passes through the empty shells of long-lost cities, you can almost imagine fear wandering there, not as a monster, but as a caretaker checking the locks on the doors of memory, making sure that the world still remembers what it once survived. Because in remembering fear, Oo remembers how to keep living. It's possible that this emotion, this unseen spirit, is the reason Oo's magic never spirals completely out of control. Even chaos, even joy, even the boundless curiosity of its inhabitants are tempered by that whispering instinct. Be careful. What you love can break. It's not a warning meant to frighten. It's a promise meant to preserve. So maybe fear isn't just the oldest shadow. Maybe it's also the quiet light inside that shadow. The first awareness that gave shape to existence itself. Before there were stars, before there were words, before there was even time, there was the tremor of something realizing it could be lost. And in that tremor, the universe began to care. Some say that when fear first entered the world, it didn't come as darkness or noise, but as a shiver through the fabric of creation, a ripple of awareness that told everything alive, you are precious, because you can end. That realization became the secret foundation of Oo's strange and fragile beauty. Every creature, from the smallest snail to the greatest cosmic being, carries a faint memory of that first trembling breath. When you look closely, you can even see fear's fingerprints on Oo's magic systems. Wizards often describe their power as something drawn from emotion, intention, shaping the unseen currents of mana. A joyful heart brings bright colors and warmth. A sorrowful one makes spells heavy and blue, but fear sharpens. It refines magic into something precise, instinctual. In battle, when Finn's courage collides with his panic, you can almost see fear guiding his movements, not freezing him, but focusing him. Fear takes all the noise of chaos and turns it into survival. The same is true for Marceline's magic. When she feeds, when she sings, when her eyes glow red in the half-light, that's not hatred. It's the primal, trembling power of fear transforming itself into strength. Her music is haunted because fear lingers in every note, remembering everything she's ever lost. But in singing it out, she doesn't let fear rule her. She turns it into something softer, something that can heal others who listen. Even Jake, so easygoing and cosmic in his own right, carries traces of fear. Beneath his playful wisdom, there's the quiet understanding that things change, that nothing stays. His shape-shifting powers, playful as they seem, are a response to that truth. He flows, he adapts, because he's learned consciously or not to dance with fear rather than run from it, to accept that life's beauty lies in its impermanence. In the deeper lore, there are whispers about the caverns of the first shadow, an ancient place said to rest beneath the foundations of Oo, even deeper than the roots of the treehouse or the ruins of human cities. It's said that this cavern hums with the residue of old fear, thick and alive, where emotions themselves take shape. Some travelers claim to have seen shapes moving in the mist. They're not monsters, but reflections of their own dreads walking alongside them. Those who leave the caverns often emerge changed, calmer, wiser. They say fear spoke to them in silence, teaching them what it really means to be alive. If fear truly is an ancient entity, then perhaps it never wanted to rule. It wanted only to warn, to remind the living that even the brightest flame can go out, and that makes its glow sacred. Fear doesn't destroy light. It frames it, gives it meaning. Without shadow, the world would be blinding and flat. Without fear, Oo's joy would be shallow, its magic reckless. That may be why even beings like the Lich, who embody total negation, carry traces of fear within them. The Lich's entire existence could be read as fear gone wrong, fear turned inward until it forgot its purpose. Instead of protecting life from danger, it sought to erase danger by erasing everything. But that's the tragedy of fear when it loses its balance. It forgets that its role isn't to end life, but to make life matter. If you listen closely to the Lich's voice, that cold, echoing tone, you can almost hear the faintest trace of sorrow underneath. A buried yearning for silence, for stillness. Perhaps, long ago, before it became what it is, the Lich was something else. A guardian of balance. A being who watched the first creatures tremble and decided to help them endure. Over countless ages, it may have fallen too far into the shadow of its own purpose, mistaking protection for destruction. That idea that fear can fall, can lose itself, is mirrored throughout Oo's history. Princess Bubblegum, driven by her love for her people, crosses that same delicate line. Her need for control, her refusal to let chaos or danger touch her kingdom, sometimes makes her cold. Her fear of failure isolates her, turning her compassion into perfectionism. But it's not villainy. It's fear doing what it does, holding on too tightly. When she finally learns to trust others again, to share her burden, that's fear finding its balance once more. There's a quiet truth here that Adventure Time often returns to. Fear doesn't vanish when you face it. It changes shape. It becomes wisdom. Each time Finn confronts a nightmare, each time Marceline revisits her past, each time Bubblegum lets go of control, they're not banishing fear. They're transforming it. It's the cycle that keeps Ooh alive. Emotion becoming experience. Experience becoming growth. And when you think about it that way, fear might just be Oo's most faithful companion. It never abandons anyone, even when they think they've outgrown it. It follows them gently, like a shadow under moonlight, reminding them that being alive means feeling deeply, even the hard things, especially the hard things. Because without fear, there would be no courage, no love strong enough to endure loss, no hope bright enough to face uncertainty. Maybe that's why, at the edge of every ending in Adventure Time, the quiet fade after a battle, the long sigh after a goodbye, there's always a softness. Fear is still there, but at peace, watching, waiting, ensuring that the story doesn't end, only rests for a while. Because the oldest shadow isn't meant to consume the light. It's meant to cradle it, to protect it, until the next dawn comes. When you imagine Ooh sleeping its forests hushed, its seas whispering under starlight, you can almost feel that ancient fear resting too. Not gone, but calm. It lingers in the corners of every dream, in the flicker of every candle lit burning through the night. Because fear, after all, has always been a companion to dreaming. It's what gives dreams their edges, what turns them from empty illusion into something that means something. Without fear, dreams would be weightless, unanchored, forgotten the moment you wake. And so even in the dreamlands of Ooh, fear plays its gentle part. The cosmic owl, that strange messenger of destiny, often appears in moments when fear and awareness meet. His visits are never random. They come when a character stands at the crossroads between comfort and change. He brings visions that shake the dreamer, that stir a quiet dread not to punish them, but to guide them. Fear's energy flows through him, transforming unease into revelation. In this way, fear becomes not just an emotion, but a bridge between the waking world and the deeper truths beneath it. There are even hints that fear connects directly to the magic of time itself. Prismo, the Wishmaster, once said that existence can only hold meaning because it's fragile. Wishes matter because they can fail. Moments matter because they can end. And what is that awareness if not a form of fear, not of suffering, but of impermanence? Time moves because fear keeps it from standing still. It pushes forward gently, whispering, "Go on. You can't stay here forever." If you've ever watched the final episodes of Adventure Time, You may remember how they feel soft, melancholic, but strangely peaceful. That is fear transformed. After years of running, of fighting, of clinging to what they loved, the characters finally learn to rest beside their fear. Finn and Jake sitting by the treehouse window, talking about nothing in particular. It's a moment drenched in stillness. They've learned that fear doesn't disappear when you find peace. It simply becomes quiet company. Fear's truest purpose, perhaps, is to teach companionship not just with others, but with yourself. Every time Finn faces a creature that embodies his nightmares, a ghost of failure, a vision of mortality becomes more whole. Ooh teaches him, and by extension us, that bravery isn't the absence of fear. It's the willingness to sit beside it and say, I know you're here. Let's walk together. That lesson echoes through every corner of this world. Peppermint Butler's fascination with the dark arts is, at its root, the desire to understand what he fears. Tree Trunk's stubborn optimism hides a lifetime of quiet terrors that she chooses to meet with kindness. Even the candy people, who seem so simple, show flickers of fear when they panic or scatter tiny reminders that they too are alive, that they understand on some instinctual level how fragile sweetness can be. Fear, then, might be Oo's oldest religion, one never spoken aloud but practiced every day. It teaches reverence for the unknown, humility before power, and gratitude for warmth and safety. Every ritual, every act of love or defense carries its mark. When BMO tucks itself in at night, whispering to its circuits, that's a ritual of fear turned tender. When Marceline plays her bass to an empty horizon, that's fear turned into song. And if we stretch our imaginations a little further, we might say that fear also shapes the land itself. Those eerie landscapes, the graveyard kingdom, the deserts of ruin, the dark seas beyond the icelands, might be physical memories of fear's ancient journey through the world, places where the emotion condensed so deeply that it became geography. When explorers travel there, what they really explore are the outer edges of their own hearts. Somewhere, far beyond the reach of any known map, legends speak of the Still Valley, a place where no creature stirs and no sound echoes. It is said to be the final resting place of fear, the heart of its long wanderings. Those who find it never return frightened, they return peaceful. They describe an endless plain of soft mist, where even your own footsteps feel distant. In the center of that quiet, they say, stands a single tree made of glass. Its branches hum softly, and when the wind passes through, it sounds like a deep, steady breath, the breath beneath all feelings. Fear's first whisper, return to silence. In the end, fear's story in Oh isn't one of torment, but of care. It has watched the world rise, fall, and rise again, always teaching the same lesson in new forms, that life is sacred because it can vanish, that courage matters because fear exists, that even the mightiest beings, heroes, monsters, gods, are all connected by that same quiet heartbeat. When Finn holds his sword for the last time, when Marceline forgives the past, when Bubblegum lets her walls fall, those are fear's victories. Not because it won, but because it fulfilled its purpose. It reminded them of what truly matters. It showed them that to live is to tremble a little, and that trembling is the pulse of the soul. So tonight, as Oo sleeps under its silver sky, fear rests too, not as a shadow waiting to strike, but as the world's soft guardian. A quiet hum beneath every heartbeat, a cool breeze at the edge of every flame. It asks for nothing but remembrance. It hopes only that those who dream will keep feeling, keep growing, and keep caring. Because without fear, there would be no reason to hold each other close when the dark grows long. And perhaps that is its greatest gift, the reminder that even in a world as strange and magical as ooh, love begins in the moment we realize we could lose it. If fear is the shadow that keeps the heart cautious, then joy is the light that teaches it to open again. In ooh, joy isn't just laughter or playfulness. It's a living, breathing energy that seems to ripple through the air like golden dust. It hums in the colors of the Candy Kingdom, dances in the firelight of Finn and Jake's treehouse, and sings through the tiny glowing spirits that wander across the nightosphere's edge after a storm. Joy is ooh's pulse of renewal, the soft counterbalance to everything that's heavy or uncertain. And yet, just like fear, it carries its own kind of mystery, because joy in ooh isn't naive. It remembers the sadness that came before it. It is laughter born from survival, sunlight that has learned to shine even through cracks in a broken sky. You can sense this in Finn's earliest adventures, those bright, chaotic days when he'd charge into danger with nothing but a grin and his best friend at his side. The world around him was strange and scarred, but his joy was pure, a force so radiant it often changed the things it touched. Monsters softened. Ghosts found peace. Even the landscape seemed to respond, turning warmer, more alive. It's as if ooh itself blooms wherever genuine joy takes root. Joy in this world might not be just an emotion, it might be a form of magic, a quiet spell that renews what's been broken. Consider Princess Bubblegum's candy citizens. Their very essence is tied to delight. They thrive on positivity, laughter, and sweetness. Yet they are fragile too. When joy fades, they crumble, melt, or dissolve into chaos. It's a reflection of how deeply ooh is built upon emotion, the heart quite literally shaping the body. There's something cosmic about that. Because if fear was the first breath, joy might be the first song. In the mythology of ooh, there are whispers of a time after the first dawn, when the silence that once belonged to fear was pierced by a melody. Some call it the laughing light, a gentle radiance that filled the cracks left by war and despair. It wasn't created by any god or elemental, but by life itself, rejoicing at its own endurance. Joy was the world realizing that it could still dance, still dream, even after the darkness. And from that realization, perhaps, came beings like the Candy Elemental, whose laughter carries the faint memory of that original melody. Princess Bubblegum, though stern and often pragmatic, carries this inheritance within her. Her love for her people, her drive to protect them, isn't only scientific or logical. It's rooted in joy, in the yearning to see life remain vibrant. She builds, creates, and organizes because she cannot bear to see her world lose its sweetness. Even her control, her perfectionism, hides that same impulse to preserve joy no matter the cost. But joy in ooh isn't confined to light and laughter. It also lives in the strange and unexpected corners, the bittersweet places where hope flickers softly amid sorrow. You can see it in Simon and Betty's story in those fleeting moments where madness gives way to memory and love. You can hear it in the haunting songs Marceline plays when she lets herself smile through her pain. That's the deeper kind of joy, the one that doesn't erase sadness but embraces it, holding it gently until both feelings glow together. Maybe that's why joy in ooh has such a powerful resonance with the idea of connection. It thrives wherever souls touch, through friendship, kindness, or even shared struggle. Jake's easy warmth is one of its purest forms. His laughter isn't loud or forced. It's a kind of wisdom. When things go wrong, he doesn't deny it. He finds the humor, the small spark that keeps the moment human. That's the secret of joy's endurance. It's not the absence of pain, but the grace to find warmth inside it. In the deeper magic of ooh, emotion shapes reality. And if fear sharpens and protects, then joy restores and expands. It's the magic that rebuilds, the unseen force that encourages things to grow again after ruin. The flowers that bloom in the ashes of the old world might very well be joy made visible, an ancient memory of laughter that refused to die. Even the land itself seems to hum with it, as if the soil still remembers what it means to celebrate being alive. You can imagine that if fear once walked the world as a shadowed guardian, then joy must have followed as a gentle companion, a being of soft radiance, smiling through tears, carrying warmth into the coldest corners of creation. Maybe it didn't speak in words, but in laughter and color. Where fear whispered, "Be careful," joy replied, "It's okay. Try again." And between those two voices, life learned to balance. In the quiet rhythm of ooh's stories, joy always returns. It finds its way back after wars, after heartbreaks, after long silences. It returns through music, through friendship, through the strange resilience of those who keep believing that things can still be beautiful. That persistence is what gives ooh its spirit, that unbreakable glow that never quite goes out, no matter how dark the sky becomes. Somewhere in ooh's history, joy began to weave itself into the world's very structure. The land itself started to remember the feeling of being happy. When the wind moved through the Candy Kingdom, it carried faint traces of laughter. When raindrops fell across the grassy hills, they seemed to hum in harmony with unseen choirs. It's as though joy, once born from the first living heart, left tiny echoes of itself everywhere in the warmth of campfires, in the shimmer of pond ripples, in the gentle rhythm of footsteps through the forest. Joy became a kind of language, one that didn't need words. The Candy people live and breathe it, quite literally. Their bright, sugary forms hum with it. Even when they panic or scatter, it's joy that holds them together afterward, reforming their world through shared smiles and collective play. They might seem simple, even childlike, but perhaps that's the point. Joy in ooh isn't about innocence. It's about trust. The trust that no matter what happens, things can still be okay. In that way, joy might be ooh's most healing emotion. Fear protects life by teaching caution, but joy repairs it, encourages it to bloom again. Think about Finn and Jake after their battles, the laughter that always follows the storm, the jokes exchanged as the sun rises over a broken battlefield. That laughter isn't denial, it's ritual, a small act of defiance against despair, a way of reminding the world that it still has the capacity to feel light. Even the strangest beings in ooh, those who seem beyond emotion, respond to joy's pull. When Peppermint Butler, deep in his dark studies, allows himself a brief chuckle over something absurd, his shadow magic softens. When Gunter, serving the Ice King, suddenly quacks in delight at something small, even the Ice King's madness seems to pause for a heartbeat. These moments suggest that joy is more than an emotion. It's a harmonizing force, one that brings balance where chaos or sorrow once reigned. Some stories say that joy was born from the tears of the first beings who realized they'd survived, that when the universe cooled from its first great fire, life looked around and saw itself reflected in the light, trembling, scarred but alive, and laughed. Not the laugh of amusement, but of recognition. That sound, they say, became the heartbeat of every creature ever since. Perhaps that's why laughter carries such strange magic in ooh. It's ancient, older than any spell. The idea of joy as an entity isn't far-fetched when you think about it through ooh's mythic lens. Fear became the oldest shadow, so why couldn't joy become the gentle radiance? An unseen presence that glows from within everything that learns to love, to create, to celebrate being. Maybe it's what Finn feels when he looks at the stars and realizes how vast and kind the universe can be. Maybe it's what Jake feels when he naps in a sunbeam, knowing that in that simple warmth, everything is right. If such a spirit exists, it doesn't announce itself with grandeur. Joy's presence is quiet, subtle. It moves through the small things, through the color of morning light, through the smell of breakfast cooking, through the soft patter of rain that lulls the land back to sleep. Ooh's magic is strongest in moments like these. It's not always found in the grand battles or cosmic revelations, but in the laughter shared between friends, the sigh after a long day, the feeling of safety after fear. It's telling that many of Adventure Time's most profound moments end not in triumph, but in stillness. Finn and Jake sitting together after chaos. Marceline strumming a song as the sunset fades. These aren't scenes of action, but of contentment, joy distilled to its purest form. They remind us that joy isn't loud. It's steady, like a candle that keeps burning quietly in the dark. When you start to look at Ooh this way, it becomes clear that joy and fear were never opposites. They are reflections, halves of the same whole. Fear creates the boundaries that keep life safe. Joy fills those boundaries with warmth and meaning. One keeps the fire from burning too high, the other keeps it from going out. In the cosmic design of Ooh, these two spirits dance eternally, shaping everything from the smallest smile to the rise and fall of entire civilizations. And perhaps, at the heart of that balance, is the reason Ooh endures. No matter how many times the world falls through wars, through magic, through time itself, joy always finds a way to return. Sometimes it's small, fragile, barely visible, but it never fully disappears. Like sunlight creeping through broken glass, it always finds a way back in. If we could see joy as a spirit truly see it, perhaps it would appear not as a being of light, but as a slow, pulsing glow that moves through others rather than standing apart. It would have no fixed form, no face to remember. It would drift like breath, like music heard underwater. Some might imagine it as a golden mist curling at the edges of thought, while others might picture it as a soft warmth behind the ribs rising and falling like the tide. But in O, where emotions shape matter and thought can bend reality, such a spirit would not just be metaphorical, it would be real in its own quiet way. Look closely, and you can trace its path through the world's storylines. In the grassy plains where Jake used to nap, the flowers still bloom in perfect circles, his laughter echoing in their gentle sway. In the Candy Kingdom, joy hums through the sugar itself, giving life to beings who exist simply to smile, to share, to celebrate. Even the Fire Kingdom, with its volatile temperament, holds joy within its embers, that radiant feeling of warmth that burns without destroying. Perhaps the most curious example lies in the skyhooks, those unseen threads of energy that hold the fragments of the shattered world together. What if joy is the silent reason they still hum with life? What if every time someone feels true delight, that energy strengthens the invisible bonds holding Ooh in balance? In that sense, joy might not just be an emotion, but a structural force, a spiritual gravity that keeps existence from falling apart. And when you think about it that way, joy becomes deeply sacred. It's not a fleeting happiness or the surface shimmer of cheerfulness. It's the deep knowing that things can still grow, even after ruin. When Marceline sings her songs, her joy isn't loud or naive. It's worn and honest, shaped by centuries of loss. Her laughter with Princess Bubblegum isn't youthful giddiness. It's the kind of joy that only comes from survival, from choosing light even when darkness feels easier. That, perhaps, is Ooh's truest joy, the one that grows through time, cracks, and memory. Finn's joy evolved too. In the beginning, it was raw and childish, the thrill of adventure, of sword fights and shouting into the wind. But as he grew, his joy softened. It became about understanding, about cherishing the moments that make life rich. When he smiles at Fern, even after everything between them, it's joy that allows forgiveness. When he looks at the horizon and realizes the world will go on without him, it's joy that lets him rest easy. In this sense, joy in Oo has always been cyclical. It is born in moments of despair, just as fear is born in moments of danger. They are both necessary parts of being alive. And maybe that's why joy never lingers too long in one place. It drifts, because it must. It finds those who need it most, stays long enough to remind them of their worth, then moves on like a quiet breeze. You can't trap joy. To do so would turn it into something else entirely. There's a story told in the deeper parts of the grasslands, an old lullaby, half-remembered, said to be sung by trees on still nights. It tells of a time when joy took the form of a traveler. This traveler carried no belongings, only a lantern filled with soft golden light. Everywhere they went, shadows followed, drawn by the warmth. When people asked why they kept walking, the traveler simply said, "Because joy is only real when shared." Some say that lantern's light still moves through the land, changing shape, finding new bearers with every generation. If that legend holds truth, perhaps joy in Oo isn't bound to a single body or era. Maybe it's an ever-returning visitor, appearing in the gestures of heroes and the kindness of strangers. Maybe the very reason Oo has survived its endless cycles of destruction and rebirth is because joy keeps choosing to return not as a god or spell, but as a feeling that refuses to die. And when we think of joy that way, it starts to resemble something divine, not in the way of worship, but in the way of presence. It doesn't demand belief or obedience. It simply exists, waiting to be felt. In the quiet glow of candles after a storm, in the laughter that slips out even during tears, in the shared silence between friends who no longer need words. Even the spirits of the nightosphere, beings shaped by greed and sorrow, are not immune to it. There are rare moments, almost imperceptible, when Hunson Abadir pauses, when he looks upon Marceline with something that might be pride. For a creature built from chaos, that is joy's miracle, to make the impossible feel gentle, if only for an instant. Joy is not the absence of pain. It's the promise that pain will not have the final word. And so in the heart of Oo, joy lives, not above suffering, but beside it, a companion walking hand in hand with sorrow through the endless twilight of existence. When we look at Oo as a living being, a spirit woven from every emotion its people have ever felt, we begin to see joy not as something that visits the world, but as something it breathes. It's the slow exhale after fear, the shimmer that lingers in the air after a laugh. It's in the way sunlight filters through shattered glass, painting even broken things in color. Oo's joy is ancient, yet always young. It's reborn with every child's giggle, every song sung under the stars, every moment of peace after chaos. The land itself seems to remember this rhythm. There are places where joy pools like a quiet spring, where the air feels warmer, the wind softer, and sound carries a faint musical hum. The Candy Kingdom is one, of course, a radiant expression of creation's delight. But there are others, hidden valleys, forgotten gardens, even the ruins of old kingdoms. In those places, travelers often say they feel something lift from their shoulders, a lightness, as though Oo itself is whispering that things will be all right. But joy, like all spirits, carries complexity. Too much of it can twist into something hollow denial, carelessness, a forced smile. Oo knows this too. There are moments when joy becomes a mask, a distraction from deeper wounds. Think of the party kingdoms, where celebration never ends. The laughter there is loud, but beneath it lies exhaustion, a desperate wish to keep the darkness at bay through noise and color. It's a reminder that even joy, when unbalanced, can lose its truth. True joy, however, is something quieter, something that accepts sorrow and moves alongside it. It's the laughter after tears, not in place of them. It's the warmth of holding someone's hand after a long silence. In that way, joy becomes not an escape, but a return to the self, to the understanding that even in a strange, broken world, beauty still exists. That's why joy and empathy are so intertwined in ooze magic. The ability to feel joy deeply often awakens the ability to understand another's heart. In the magic systems of the land of Wu, emotions are rarely passive. They're active currents, shaping the very structure of reality. Fire burns brighter when fueled by passion, ice strengthens through loneliness, and plants flourish through love. Joy's influence is gentler. It doesn't dominate, it harmonizes. It creates resonance between things, linking life together through invisible threads. When Finn and Jake share laughter after chaos, it restores what's been broken. When BMO dances alone in the dark, humming to itself, that joy radiates outward, small but real, and somehow the world feels lighter for it. Maybe joy's true power lies in how it spreads without demanding attention. Unlike fear, which seizes and holds, joy flows freely. It moves through every form, unclaimed and unbound. You can't contain it in a bottle or cast it as a spell. You can only allow it, like sunlight through open windows. In this way, it may be the most powerful emotion of all. Because while fear builds walls and anger reshapes the world with force, joy quietly keeps everything alive. It is endurance disguised as laughter. There is an ancient phrase carved into the stones near Lake Sava, written in a language no one speaks anymore. Scholars believe it translates to something like, "When the stars forget their shine, sing for them." It's a hauntingly simple idea that even the cosmos needs reminding of joy. That maybe in Wu's strange cycle of destruction and rebirth, it's not gods or heroes who preserve the world, but those small, persistent acts of happiness. The songs, the stories, the shared meals. If emotions are entities, then joy is the one that never seeks dominion. It has no throne, no temple. It is not worshipped. It is lived. You find it in small places, the way Princess Bubblegum's lab lights flicker when she finally cracks a problem, the way Finn's laughter echoes over water, the way the grass waves in rhythm to Jake's gentle snoring. These are joy's quiet temples, ordinary moments, holding extraordinary peace. And maybe that's what keeps Wu from falling completely into shadow, because every time joy returns in a new form, in a new heart, it reshapes the balance of the world. It tells fear to rest, anger to soften, and love to keep growing. It whispers that even in the ruins of the past, something beautiful can still bloom. If you listen closely, you can almost hear it. Not a voice, but a hum beneath all things. The hum of rivers, of stars, of hearts. It's the sound of the world remembering itself, of life choosing to continue. And perhaps that hum is joy's truest form. Not light, not laughter, but the quiet vibration of existence saying, "I am still here." So as we drift further into the hidden universe of emotions, we carry this truth with us, that joy isn't something we chase. It's something that finds us when we allow ourselves to simply be, in stillness, in presence, in the soft pulse of the moment. Because somewhere in the heart of Wu, joy is still walking, a quiet traveler with a lantern of golden light, lighting the way for every soul that dares to feel. If fear is the first emotion and joy its gentle balance, then love is the thread that ties all others together. In the land of Oo, love isn't merely affection or romance. It's something older, something cosmic. It's the pull that keeps the stars aligned, the energy that gives shape to souls. You can see it in every story that's ever been told across this strange and beautiful world, from the quiet devotion between Princess Bubblegum and Marceline to the steadfast bond between Finn and Jake. Love in Oo is not just a feeling. It is a form of magic, a force that remembers when everything else forgets. Think of how many times love has defied time itself. When the Mushroom War turned the old world to glass and ruin, love still found ways to survive, written in the DNA of creatures, preserved in the songs of ghosts, carried in the hearts of heroes who would not let go. Even GOLB's touch, that all-consuming entropy, cannot erase love entirely. It changes it, reshapes it. But somewhere some spark always remains. Marceline is perhaps Oo's greatest vessel of love's endurance. Her love is layered for her mother, for her father, for the friends who became family, and for the world she's watched crumble and rebuild countless times. She's lived through loss after loss, yet her heart has never truly closed. Every song she sings carries love's echo, a sound that vibrates through ages, soothing even those who do not understand why they feel calm when they hear it. Her voice doesn't just express love, it keeps it alive. Princess Bubblegum's version of love is different, precise, deliberate, built from logic and structure. For her, love is a formula she once tried to solve but could never quite master. She created life from candy and sugar, but what she truly sought was connection. And in Marceline, she found something science could not explain, a love that exists beyond perfection, beyond control. Their bond, stretched and mended across centuries, becomes one of Oo's most enduring proofs that love can survive even when it is misunderstood, even when it's pushed aside. And but love's influence goes far beyond individual. Look at the world itself. The grass grows toward the sun, drawn by something invisible, a kind of yearning. The sky holds the earth close with gravity's unseen embrace. The elements themselves, those great cosmic spirits that shaped Oo's very foundation, fire, ice, candy, and slime, all reflect a facet of love's nature. Fire is passion, burning and consuming. Ice is memory, the love that refuses to forget. Candy is nurturing, love that builds and sustains. And slime, ever shifting, is love's acceptance, the ability to change, to adapt, to forgive. In this way, love may be the oldest magic of all. Before spells, before gods, before the first songs of mortals, there was connection particles drawn together, light reaching for light. The Great Mushroom War may have wiped away civilization, but it could not erase that fundamental truth, that everything in existence wants to be near something else, that everything wants to belong. Finn's journey through has always been one of love, though he rarely names it that way. His heroism isn't driven by conquest or power, but by care. Every monster he fights, every person he helps, comes from that same inner pulse, the desire to protect what he loves. Over time, his love changes shape. It begins as a boy's crush, becomes a friend's loyalty, and matures into something deeper, a love for the world itself, for the very act of living. By the time he meets the older version of himself in the multiverse, Finn's love has become selfless, a quiet devotion to existence itself. What's remarkable about love in Oo is how it transcends boundaries. It isn't limited by species or form. Magic Man, after losing his beloved Margles, was consumed by grief, a twisted shadow of love turned inward. But even his madness, his cruelty, was proof of how deeply he had once cared. When Grob Gob Glob Grod brings him back to clarity, even for a moment, that same love flickers, again fragile. but real. It reminds us that in ooh, love is never fully gone. It can sleep, it can hide, but it always waits to be remembered. Somewhere in the cosmic balance, love may be the bridge between emotion and creation, where fear gives form to shadows and joy gives rise to color. Love gives purpose. It's what holds the universe's chaos together, the unseen gravity that keeps every soul from drifting too far into the dark. Even GOLB, the being of pure disorder, seems to recognize love as something outside its reach. When Betty merges with GOLB, her love for Simon becomes the only thing strong enough to alter that being's essence, if only for a moment. In that single act, love transcends mortality, reason, even entropy itself. Love's power in ooh is not to conquer, but to connect. It doesn't fight the dark. It reaches through it, reminding even the lost parts of the world that they still belong somewhere. And that may be why love is called the endless echo, because it never truly fades. It moves through hearts, through ages, through memories long after their origin has been forgotten. There's something beautifully haunting about the way love lingers in ooh, as though it refuses to be forgotten, no matter how much time passes. You can see it in the ruins that dot the landscape, where faded murals still depict people holding hands, or where the remnants of old gardens bloom in impossible colors. Even when the world was reshaped by magic and mutation, those traces of love remained, etched into stone and soil alike. It's as if love imprinted itself onto the very DNA of the planet, ensuring that every new life born carries a faint echo of connection within it. And perhaps that's why love manifests differently for every creature. For the Flame Princess, it's a dangerous warmth, a fire that both gives and destroys. Her journey was one of learning that to love is not to consume, but to share one's flame without burning another. For the Ice King, love became memory trapped in frost. His obsession, his loneliness, his endless search for princesses, all of it stemmed from the love he lost when Simon fell to the crown's curse. Beneath the madness there was still tenderness, frozen and waiting. Even in his most confused moments, he wrote poems, sang songs, and sought companionship. Because love, even twisted by time and magic, cannot help but try to reach out. Then there's Tree Trunks, whose love, though simple, may be the purest of all. Her heart remains open, unguarded. She loves easily and fully, never doubting the worth of others. Her kindness is the sort of love that rebuilds the world quietly, one pie at a time. It's easy to overlook her because she isn't grand or dramatic, but that's the beauty of it. In a world of cosmic forces and immortal beings, love often works through the smallest acts, a warm word, a gesture of care, a choice to forgive. If emotions are living entities, as we've been exploring, then love might be their unifying consciousness, the gentle current that flows through all others. Fear acts as protection, joy as healing, anger as movement. But love gives them meaning. It's the reason why fear exists in the first place, because we don't want to lose what we care for. It's why joy feels so profound, because it connects us to something beyond ourselves. It even tempers anger, turning destruction into transformation. Every emotion, in its deepest sense, circles back to love. And maybe that's why so many magical beings in ooh seem drawn to it. The elemental forces are bound by it. The ancient wizards study it without ever fully understanding it, and even the cosmic entities seem to bend subtly in its presence. Remember when Betty's love for Simon pierced GOLB's incomprehensible form, that moment when love and chaos collided and something inside the monster trembled? That wasn't just emotion. That was metaphysical truth. Love's frequency, woven to the fabric of creation, resonated with something buried deep in even the darkest entity. There's an unspoken belief in ooh that love carries its own kind of memory, that every time you feel it, it connects you not just to the present, but to every version of yourself that has ever loved before. Maybe that's why memories of love are so vivid, even across lifetimes and timelines. In Come Along With Me, when Finn meets the adult version of himself across time, there's a quiet recognition, a familiarity that doesn't need words. Perhaps that's what love's echo sounds like. The soft recognition of something that has always been part of you. Even death, it seems, cannot silence it. When spirits appear in ooh, like Shoko's ghost, lingering near Finn, they are drawn not by unfinished business, but by love that never found rest. They return not to haunt, but to reconnect, even for a moment. Death in ooh isn't an ending, not really. It's another form of continuation, where love becomes the thread that guides the lost back toward peace. There's something deeply comforting about that. To imagine that every act of kindness, every word of affection, every connection made, continues to ripple through time, even after the speaker is gone. That is the endless echo love as vibration, reverberating through everything. A song that never stops singing, even when the world falls silent. And maybe that's why the stars in ooh twinkle the way they do. Some say it's the light of long-forgotten loves, the final echoes of beings who once cared deeply. Their love didn't fade. It simply took a new form, whispering across eternity in the faint shimmer of distant constellations. If you listen to ooh carefully, not with your ears, but with that quiet place behind the heart, you can feel love humming through everything. It's in the way rivers curve gently around mountains as if embracing them. It's in the wind that carries sense of home across great distances. It's in the way the world, no matter how many times it breaks, still finds the strength to begin again. Love is not just emotion here. It's the architecture of existence itself. Every living thing, from the smallest slug to the mightiest cosmic being, participates in this ancient rhythm, the endless echo of connection and care. Even those who reject love cannot truly escape it. The lich, the embodiment of death and oblivion, stands in stark opposition to it. Yet his very existence is shaped in response to love. He seeks to end life because life keeps reaching for others. His destruction is fueled by resentment toward the persistence of love, that unstoppable force that defies emptiness. In a strange way, even his hatred becomes proof of love's presence, because to hate love, one must first have felt it. Somewhere, deep within ooh's oldest layers, there are whispers that love predates the cosmos, that before the first spark of light, before the first sound or shape, there was simply longing, the desire to be known. From that longing came creation, and from creation, consciousness. Everything since has been a reflection of that first moment, the universe yearning to recognize itself. That yearning is love in its rawest form, the one that speaks without words and moves without motion. This might explain why love in ooh takes on so many strange and beautiful shapes. It exists between friends who share silent companionship, between parent and child, between beings of entirely different realities. It doesn't follow logic. It simply is. When Finn meets Huntress Wizard, their connection feels mysterious and untamed, not the predictable spark of storybook romance, but something elemental, like wind meeting flame. Their bond doesn't need permanence to be meaningful. Its beauty lies in its impermanence, in the awareness that love's purpose isn't to possess, but to illuminate. Then there's the love that flows between Jake and Lady Rainicorn, playful, steady, wordless. Their connection bridges languages, species, and even realms of understanding. Yet their harmony is effortless. They are proof that love's power isn't found in grand gestures, but in quiet coexistence. Their shared life, their children, their laughter, all of it radiates that soft, enduring warmth that Oo seems to recognize as sacred. Perhaps love in Oo has always been a kind of music one that shapes reality without ever needing to be heard. When Marceline sings, or when BMO hums while dreaming, the air itself seems to shimmer, as though remembering the first song ever sung. These melodies are not just entertainment. They are spells of remembrance. Every tune is a declaration that love still exists, that it refuses to be forgotten. Even in Oo's darkest moments, love finds a way to seep through the cracks. Think of Simon and Betty standing at the edge of oblivion. Their story is one of tragedy, yes, but also of transcendence. Betty's final act, merging with GOLB to save Simon, was not destruction, but transformation. In that moment, love rewrote the laws of chaos. It turned annihilation into creation, silence into song. GOLB, a being of pure entropy, was forever altered by it. Love reached even into that endless void and planted a seed of memory there, proof that no darkness is absolute. There's a kind of peace in understanding that love doesn't always end happily. It isn't measured by outcomes, but by presence, by the courage to care, even knowing that everything changes. The people of Oo, in all their odd forms and fractured histories, live by this truth without realizing it. Every act of kindness, every shared laugh, every hand extended in friendship, these are echoes of love's original song, replaying through time. And maybe that's what Oo's long story has always been trying to teach, that love is not a goal, but a continuum. It stretches backward into the past, forward into the unknown, and inward into the self. It connects mortals with immortals, memories with dreams, beginnings with endings. To love in Oo is to participate in the oldest form of magic, the kind that neither crowns nor spells can master, because it belongs to everyone and to no one. At night, when the sky glows with ribbons of green and violet light, some say those are love's whispers made visible, the residue of every emotion ever felt, swirling across the heavens. The auroras are said to hum softly if you listen long enough. That hum isn't mere wind or magnetism. It's the pulse of the universe's heart, still beating, still remembering. And when the stars fade at dawn, their shimmer doesn't vanish. It simply travels inward, returning to those who wake beneath them. For love never truly leaves. It only changes form, waiting patiently to be felt again. Somewhere in the quiet space between heartbeat and breath, love lingers, not as a memory, but as a living force. It doesn't fade when unspoken or falter when unseen. Instead, it seeps into the soil, the stars, and the sighs of those who dare to feel deeply. In this truth breathes through every moment, connecting the wild chaos of life to the soft stillness of meaning. When Princess Bubblegum and Marceline finally allow themselves to be honest to admit that their love never vanished, only evolved, the world around them seems to soften. Candy and darkness meet, logic and passion intertwine, and something new is born. Their love doesn't erase their flaws or fix their past. It simply holds them. That's what makes it so human, even in a world of monsters and magic. It teaches that love doesn't demand perfection. It asks only for presence. Even the smallest gestures carry love's weight in Oo when BMO tucks in a sleeping friend or tells a story to the empty air. They're participating in the universe's oldest ritual, the act of caring without expectation. It's the same rhythm that guided Finn when he reached out to enemies instead of destroying them, the same pulse that led Jake to forgive, the same heartbeat that made tree trunks still believe in romance after lifetimes of heartbreak. Love in Oo is endlessly patient, endlessly foolish, and endlessly true. And yet the deeper you look, the more mysterious it becomes. There's an ancient myth whispered by the spirit creatures of the nightosphere that love is the one emotion even demons cannot destroy. They can warp it, twist it, bury it beneath fury and pride, but they cannot erase it. Because love, in its purest essence, is not an emotion at all. It's memory. It's awareness. It's the recognition of self within another. That realization is the key to every transformation Oo has ever seen. When Ice King finally becomes Simon again, love is both the cause and the cure. Betty's sacrifice didn't just save him. It restored a balance that had been broken for centuries. It's as if the cosmos itself sighed in relief, as if love had finally completed a long-forgotten promise. The echoes of their connection ripple quietly through time, reaching even into future generations, reminding them that no story of love ever truly ends. It just changes shape, waiting for the right moment to begin again. Sometimes when Finn looks up at the stars, he imagines they're watching back, not as distant flames, but as eyes filled with care. He doesn't always understand the mysteries of love, but he feels it moving through him, guiding him toward forgiveness, toward wonder, toward peace. He realizes that every adventure, every loss, every strange being he's ever met has been love's way of teaching him how to live. And maybe that's love's secret. It doesn't speak in grand pronouncements or glowing symbols. It speaks through the ordinary, a shared meal, a gentle word, a laugh in the dark. It moves quietly beneath fear, beneath pain, beneath time itself. It's the force that keeps the stars from falling apart, that teaches broken worlds how to heal. In Oo's twilight, when the air grows cool and the light takes on that honey-colored softness, you can almost see love drifting through the trees like dust made of memory. It touches everything, even the forgotten ruins, even the places where grief once lived. It turns ruins into gardens, ghosts into guides. Love is the gardener of eternity, endlessly tending what others think has been lost. And when the people of Oo finally fall asleep, Finn, Jake, Marceline, Bubblegum, Simon, BMO, and all the rest, that invisible rhythm continues to hum in their dreams. Their breathing becomes part of the same eternal song. The stars above and the hearts below move in perfect harmony. Every sigh, every memory, every spark of care becomes part of the echo that never fades. Because in the end, love is not something to be found. It's something we remember, something that was always there, waiting for us to listen. And when we do, we realize it's everywhere, in every kindness, every connection, every flicker of life that refuses to go dark. Love is the first language and the final lullaby. It is the breath that began everything, and the echo that will never stop returning. Anger in Oo is not simply rage. It is not the loud crash of destruction, nor the harsh glare of hate. It is something older, deeper, a spark born from the same fire that once gave the world its shape. Anger is the twin of creation, the heat that melts and remakes. Without it, the lands of Oo would remain still, unchallenged, and lifeless. It is the emotion that refuses silence, the one that demands transformation. If you listen closely, you can hear it breathing through the very earth. Volcanoes rumble beneath the surface, not out of cruelty, but out of need, a need to release, to cleanse, to begin again. In the land of fire, where Flame Princess reigns, this truth is embodied in every flicker of light. Her anger was once feared, her temper seen as dangerous. But beneath that fury was a sacred rhythm, the understanding that burning can be both an end and a beginning. When Flame Princess learned to balance her flame, she became something extraordinary, a symbol of rebirth. Her power, once chaotic and destructive, turned into the very force that sustained her kingdom. Every burst of flame was a declaration that anger is not evil when it serves truth, It is the courage to say, I have been hurt, and the strength to say, I will heal. The heat she carries is the same fire that once illuminated the stars raw, consuming, but also full of light. Even the cosmos seem to understand this paradox. In the ruins of forgotten worlds, the energy of old destruction fuels the birth of new stars. That same pattern repeats across Ooh and its magic, its people, its memories. Anger clears the path so that something softer can eventually grow. It tears down walls that have stood too long, shatters illusions that hide pain, and opens wounds that must finally be seen. Without it, there would be no space for forgiveness or change. Think of Princess Bubblegum's moments of frustration, her sharp edges that so often clash with her compassion. Beneath her calm logic, there's a fierce intensity, a quiet, controlled flame. Her anger doesn't burn randomly. It drives her to protect, to build, to correct the chaos that threatens what she loves. In her, anger becomes intellect sharpened by feeling, proof that even the most orderly heart still holds storm. And in that storm, there is movement, growth, renewal. But anger doesn't always wear the face of royalty or power. Sometimes it takes the shape of a small human boy standing in a broken world, screaming at the universe because nothing makes sense. Finn's anger, so raw and unfiltered, is perhaps the purest in Ooh. It isn't destructive by nature. It's born from love, from hope, from the ache of wanting things to be right. When he lashes out, he isn't trying to destroy, he's trying to understand. And over time, his anger evolves. It stops being an explosion and becomes a kind of quiet determination, the warmth of a hearth instead of a wildfire. There's an old story whispered among the elemental spirits that before Ooh was formed, there was a single flame that refused to die. It burned even in the coldest dark, waiting for something worth igniting. When the first emotions emerged, joy, fear, love, it was anger that gave them motion. Joy could illuminate, but not move. Love could bind, but not break free. Fear could protect, but not evolve. Only anger, fierce and unrelenting, taught the universe how to change. It is the pulse that drives the cycle of rebirth, the whisper that says, try again. In that way, anger is both a destroyer and a healer. It strips away the false layers, leaving only what is real. It tests the soul, burns away complacency, and makes space for something more honest. It is uncomfortable, but sacred, the inner fire that reminds beings that they are alive. Every time someone in Ooh stands up after falling, every time they choose to rebuild, anger is there, guiding them quietly through the flames. When Flame Princess stood face to face with her father, the Flame King, her power trembled between love and fury. In that moment, she wasn't simply fighting him, she was breaking the ancient inheritance of destruction passed down through her bloodline. Her anger became liberation, and as she walked away from his throne, the fire that once chained her now illuminated her path. In her wake, the land didn't smolder, it blossomed with light. Anger, then, is the emotion of transformation. It's what happens when love collides with injustice, when hope refuses to surrender, when life insists on continuing even after loss. It is the voice that says, something must change, and the strength to make it happen. And though it burns, it also cleanses. Because in Ooh, every flame eventually finds its rhythm. Every fire eventually learns to dance. There are nights in Ooh when the horizon glows with a soft, reddish haze, the remnants of some distant burst of magic or emotion. If you were to stand there quietly, you might feel the faint hum of it, the way anger still lingers even after the storm has passed. It's not violent anymore, it's just warm. That's what anger becomes when it's understood, not an inferno, but a hearth. The same flame that once frightened becomes a light to guide the lost. For Finn, this transformation is deeply personal. His journey with anger has never been about destruction, but about learning to hold it without being consumed. When he lost his arm, when he watched friends leave or change, he felt the sting of that ancient emotion. His anger wasn't the wild kind that burns everything in its path. It was the heavy kind that sits in the chest, glowing low and steady. And in that quiet burn, something beautiful began to happen. Finn's empathy deepened. His heart didn't harden, it became tempered, like steel forged in fire. That is the secret power of anger. In Ooh, it tempers the soul. It refines what's already there. The Flame Kingdom may appear to outsiders as a land of chaos and volatility, but to those who understand its rhythm, it's a place of rebirth. Every ember that falls into ash is a seed. Every explosion that scorches the ground leaves behind minerals that nourish new life. The fire never truly destroys, it transforms. You can see this reflected even in the strange creatures of Ooh, the elemental spirits that embody emotion and instinct. The fire wolves, for instance, were said to be born from the first quarrel between sun and moon. Their howls echo with an anger that is not hatred, but yearning. They burn with the desire to be seen, to be known. And though their flames can devour forests, their light also keeps the darkness at bay. The people of Ooh once feared them, but over time, they learned. Anger is not the enemy. The absence of understanding is. Marceline knows this truth better than most. Her anger once defined her, sharp, biting, relentless. It came from loneliness, from centuries of watching the world forget her name. But that anger, as heavy as it was, kept her alive. It gave her a reason to sing, to rebel, to search for meaning when everything else felt empty. Over the years, her songs softened, her temper cooled, but that spark never went out. It simply changed form, becoming the rhythm in her music, the strength in her vulnerability. Even the Ice King's story, tragic as it is, it carries traces of anger hidden within sorrow. Simon's fury was never loud. It was buried beneath confusion and grief. But deep down, there was still a small ember, the anger of a man who wanted his life back, who wanted to protect those he loved. The quiet, suppressed rage eventually became his salvation, helping him break free from the madness that once defined him. In Ooh, even suppressed anger eventually finds its way to light. When the elements of Ooh, fire, ice, candy, and slime once merged and clashed during the elemental war, the result was not just chaos, but purification. Anger played a role in that too. It tore down false harmony, forcing the world to face its fractures. And after the fire faded, new balance emerged. From the ashes of old kingdoms, new life began to grow, uncertain but real. There's something deeply sacred about that pattern. It mirrors the way stars live and die. A star burns furiously, collapsing in on itself when it can no longer contain its own energy. But even that destruction births new light, new galaxies, new beginnings. The same principle flows through every ember in Ooh. Anger is not a flaw. It is a necessary force in the cycle of life, death, and rebirth. When we see Flame Princess meditating in the quiet glow of her kingdom, surrounded by gentle embers that pulse like heartbeats, we realize that she has become the perfect balance between fire and peace. Her flames no longer consume, they comfort. Her kingdom glows not with rage, but with vitality. The people who once feared her now gather by her light. That is the promise of anger. When tended with care, it becomes warmth. And maybe that's what Ooh has been teaching all along, that emotions are not meant to be conquered or denied. They are forces of nature, as ancient and necessary as the sun itself. Anger, especially, is not a storm to hide from, but a fire to learn from. If we can face it gently, if we can understand its rhythm, it will not burn us. It will forge us. In the deeper layers of U's spirit, anger has always been tied to transformation. It is said that when the first humans vanished from the surface, leaving behind their ruins and echoes, the earth itself burned with their memory. The red stones that scatter the deserts and the molten rivers beneath the crust are not remnants of war, but of change. They mark the places where pain was too great to bear, and so it turned to flame. That fire did not die. It wandered. It became emotion itself, not a destructive one, but a guardian. The ancient wizards called it the Ember Spirit, a being that flickered invisibly through the world, awakening strength in those who felt powerless. Whenever someone in U faces injustice or loss and refuses to bow to it, the Ember Spirit is said to awaken nearby, lending its quiet heat. It doesn't rage or roar. It simply burns with purpose. This is why so many of U's great transformations are born from moments of anger, not senseless fury, but a sacred refusal. Finn's rage at the Lich was not just vengeance, it was a stand against nothingness. He saw the world teetering toward oblivion, and his anger became light, the pure, youthful force that defied the cosmic stillness of evil. It is easy to mistake that for violence, but in truth, it is creation pushing back against entropy. Even GOLB, that strange being of chaos and dissolution, carries within him traces of anger's divine pattern. His existence represents destruction and unmaking, but what follows his presence is always change, never the same world twice. It is frightening, yes, but also necessary. The fire of rebirth burns not only in hearts, but in universes. Anger is not evil. It is energy in motion, emotion that refuses to let things stagnate. Flame Princess once said that she could feel every flicker of anger in her kingdom, that it was like hearing 1,000 heartbeats at once. Some burned too hot and consumed themselves, while others glowed softly and brought light to dark corners. She learned to guide that balance, not through control, but through empathy. She became a teacher of flame, showing her people that to burn without understanding is to destroy, but to burn with awareness is to illuminate. The balance was tested when she met Finn again, long after their breakup. The spark between them was still there, raw, unresolved. But instead of reigniting the storm, they shared a quiet understanding. They had both changed. Their anger had turned into wisdom, their fire into warmth. It was as if two elements had finally learned each other's language. In that moment, U itself seemed to sigh, the air shimmered. The clouds above the Fire Kingdom glowed faintly gold. There is something cosmic about reconciliation. When anger dissolves into understanding, the world shifts, even if just a little. The energy released becomes healing, not just for those who forgive, but for the space around them. And so anger becomes not the end of peace, but its beginning. It teaches creatures how to feel deeply without fear, how to stand without cruelty. The world of U, in all its beauty and absurdity, thrives because of this rhythm: ice and fire, love and fear, life and death. They are not enemies, only reflections of the same pulse. Anger sits at their center, a glowing core reminding all that life must sometimes burn to keep moving forward. There is an ancient belief held by the elemental monks who dwell near the scorched plateau that the truest fire burns cold. They meditate beside pools of obsidian, watching their reflections shimmer in the stone, believing that anger, purified by compassion, becomes clarity. They say that when the world ends, it will not end in silence, but in a great cleansing flame, one that erases cruelty, greed, and sorrow, leaving behind only stillness and light. And maybe, in some way, we've already seen glimpses of that truth. Every time U endures collapse, the mushroom war, elemental resets, cosmic intrusions, it always returns, reshaped, renewed. Its people, too, are reborn again and again through their emotions. Anger is the bridge that carries them across the flames. If love is the echo that binds, then anger is the breath that awakens. It shakes what has gone still. It roars life back into things that have forgotten how to feel. To deny it is to deny the pulse of creation itself. The universe does not whisper into being. It bursts, expands, collides. Ooh is proof of that. A living memory of emotions, chaos, and grace intertwined. When the night falls over the fire kingdom and the last embers cool into gentle light, Flame Princess walks among them barefoot, letting the warmth rise through her skin. In her calm steps, you can see the final lesson of anger, that fire need not rage to be powerful. It can exist in stillness, as steady heat, as enduring life. It can burn softly, forever, without consuming the world it loves. As dawn stretches over U, the firelight of the night fades into the pale blush of morning. Yet somewhere beneath the surface, the embers remain steady, patient, alive. That is how anger truly lives in this world. Not as a moment of fury, but as a quiet force that keeps the heart from growing cold. Every soul in U carries that ember. For some, it flickers when they witness injustice. For others, it glows when they lose something dear. Even gentle souls like BMO feel it in their own way, a small flash of indignation when someone they love is hurt. It's not violent. It's simply the heart's way of saying, this matters. And that is the sacred truth of anger. It reminds life to care. There is a tale told by the creatures who dwell near the Red Waste, where glass and ash shimmer like frozen flame. They speak of a time when a great firestorm swept across the land, burning everything until even the wind grew still. But when the first rain fell, something miraculous happened. The scorched earth began to sparkle with strange, translucent flowers, glass-petaled blooms that only appear where fire and water have met in balance. They call them ash lilies, symbols of the world's forgiveness. They are the proof that destruction can give birth to beauty, that anger, when released, becomes art. Flame Princess keeps one such flower beside her throne. It never wilts. When she looks at it, she remembers every version of herself, the reckless girl, the daughter of fire, the queen who learned peace. All those selves were born from flame, each one shedding a layer of old anger until only light remained. And she understands now that her fire is not a burden, but a gift. It gives warmth to those who've forgotten it, courage to those afraid to change. Sometimes, when night falls again and the stars stretch across the sky, she sends out a wave of heat so faint that it barely stirs the air. It ripples through the kingdom like a sigh. To most, it feels like nothing more than the last breath of day. But to those attuned to magic, it is something more, a message, a reminder that within every heart lies the potential to burn cleanly, to transform pain into renewal. Elsewhere, Marceline strums her bass in the cool darkness, her music soft and raw. Each note carries traces of that same energy, the echo of her old anger, now mellowed into melancholy warmth. When she sings, the shadows in her room dance gently against the walls, no longer menacing, but rhythmic, alive. Her songs remind the night itself that anger doesn't need to be silenced. It only needs to be understood. Even Gunter, the little penguin, with far too much hidden power, embodies this strange paradox. Within his silly waddle and innocent eyes hides the memory of Orgalor, the ancient being of destruction. Yet Gunter's anger has become something else. It flickers only in rare moments, like a memory of thunder. In his quiet way, even he has learned to live with the fire, letting it sleep peacefully inside him. It's a gentle lesson from an unlikely teacher, that the mightiest flames can rest within the smallest hearts. Across U, the presence of anger is felt in 1,000 subtle ways, in the rush of wind through broken towers, in the pulse of lava under mountains, in the hush that follows a storm. It is never gone, only transformed. And maybe that is why U still stands after all it has endured. Every time it is burned, it has found a way to rise again, changed but alive. The land itself remembers how to breathe through the fire. There is wisdom in that endurance. The people of U, from heroes to kings, from monsters to mortals, have all learned in their own quiet ways to let their anger become a teacher instead of a master. The Candy Kingdom builds new wonders after each disaster. The Fire Kingdom glows with steadier warmth. The Ice Lands thaw and refreeze with gentler rhythm. Even the magic that once tore the world apart now hums in harmony with life. And somewhere, in the heart of all things, that ember spirit. The first fire continues to glow. It does not roar or demand attention. It waits, patient and eternal, ready to lend its warmth to anyone brave enough to face themselves. Because that is the true gift of anger. It shows what we are willing to protect, what we refuse to let die. When the people of U close their eyes at night, their dreams shimmer faintly with the same soft red hue. Not of fury, but of passion. The color of a universe still learning to care, still daring to begin again. And as the stars glint above them like sparks scattered from some ancient forge, you can almost hear the world whispering in its sleep. Burn gently, change bravely, live again. For anger, when finally understood, is not the end of peace. It is the fire that gives peace its shape. It is the eternal promise that even after darkness, there will always be light, always warmth, always another chance to begin. In the quiet hours between night and dawn, when U itself seems to hold its breath, there is a feeling that something deeper stirs beneath the world's dreaming skin. The wind drifts slower. The stars hum in softer tones. The land feels aware, as if the emotions that shaped it are turning inward, beginning to dream. Tonight we follow those dreams, not of people or places, but of feelings themselves. Because in U, emotions are not just sensations. They are living energies, each capable of reflection, of memory, of longing. When emotions dream, they do not see the world as we do. They see through symbols, colors, rhythms, pulses of sound and motion. Fear sees the soft shimmer of its own shadow and wonders what it's protecting now. Joy twirls endlessly in spirals of gold, remembering the laughter it once inspired in a child by a campfire. Love hums gently in echoes that ripple through every living thing. And anger, that ancient flame, burns low and steady, no longer seeking to destroy, but simply to keep the dark from growing cold. In the dreamscape of U, these feelings intertwine like threads in an endless tapestry. They don't compete or cancel one another out. They dance together, forming the moods and seasons of existence. The sky itself shifts with their rhythm, hues of rose, violet and blue flickering like emotions breathing in unison. It's a place where even the air seems to remember every tear, every laugh, every heartbeat that ever existed. Finn once glimpsed this world in a dream, or perhaps it was something more. It came to him on a night when his mind was heavy, filled with every joy and sorrow that a young hero could carry. He found himself walking through a vast meadow where the grass shimmered like liquid emotion. Every blade glowed a different color, each representing a feeling: happiness, regret, courage, grief. When he touched one, he felt its story unfold inside him. The laughter of a friend, the pain of goodbye, the warmth of hope returning. It wasn't frightening or overwhelming. It was peaceful, as though the universe was showing him that no feeling is wasted, no emotion ever truly disappears. In that dream, Finn realized something that perhaps even the ancient beings of Ooh had forgotten. Emotions do not belong to anyone. They are shared. They drift between souls like pollen in the wind, carried from one heart to another, transforming as they go. The sadness of one creature becomes compassion in another. Fear, once released, becomes wisdom. Joy turns into inspiration. Every emotion dreams itself into the next, and so the cycle continues, endless and gentle. Deep beneath the Candy Kingdom, in the crystalline caverns where pure elemental energy hums, the scientists of Bubblegum's lineage once studied this phenomenon. They called it affective echoes, residual emotional vibrations that remained long after their sources had gone. The candy golems and spirit flora were found to grow stronger in places filled with laughter or care, and weaker in areas marked by neglect or cruelty. The land itself absorbed emotion, then reshaped it. And perhaps, when the world sleeps, those echoes come alive, weaving themselves into dreams that keep Ooh balanced. In those dreams, emotions are no longer servants of the mind. They are the architects of reality. They rebuild the world while its inhabitants rest, healing wounds both seen and unseen. If a forest has witnessed too much anger, it might dream of rain to cool its soil. If a mountain has held too much grief, it might hum itself into new harmony, sending minerals upward like soft forgiveness. The land breathes through emotion. The world dreams itself whole again. And somewhere, within that deep current of feeling, the souls of Ooh heroes, monsters, kings, and wanderers drift like whispers. Their emotions merge and mix, indistinguishable from one another. Finn's bravery touches Simon's regret. Marceline's tenderness brushes against BMO's wonder. Even the ancient essence of GOLB feels it, that strange pulse of creation and feeling intertwined. It is said that when emotions dream, even chaos rests, for in that state, all contradictions dissolve, and every feeling becomes simply being. In that place where emotions dream, time has no real meaning. There is no before or after, only an unfolding pulse that stretches through eternity. Everything that ever felt anything still exists here, vibrating like threads of color within an endless song. If you could listen closely enough, you might hear the overlapping heartbeats of all who ever lived, layered like the harmonies of a cosmic lullaby. This is the hidden universe of emotions at rest, and yet also at work, endlessly weaving the unseen fabric that holds Ooh together. In this realm, the emotions themselves take on forms that are neither human nor monstrous shapes that flicker between the tangible and the abstract. Fear might resemble a great moth with wings of transparent smoke, fluttering in quiet circles, careful not to disturb the dream around it. Joy glows like a golden stream, swirling through the dreamscape, touching every shadow to remind it of light. Love appears as a great mirrored sphere that reflects not faces but memories, every act of kindness, every sacrifice, every silent connection between two hearts. And anger, the flame that once raged and destroyed, now burns softly in the center of it all, like a hearth fire in an ancient home. These entities do not speak, but they communicate through ripples, waves of feeling that pass through everything. A ripple of fear might sharpen the world's awareness, reminding it to stay alert to danger. A ripple of joy could mend the cracks in a broken dream. A ripple of love might bind lost spirits together, creating constellations in the dream sky. And when anger stirs, it reignites motion itself, the will to act, to change, to rebuild. In this dreaming realm, Every emotion serves its purpose, and none is rejected. It is a kind of balance that the waking world rarely achieves. There is an ancient belief whispered by the elemental spirits that ooh itself was born from the dream of a forgotten emotion, a feeling so vast and pure that it could no longer remain formless. Some say it was curiosity, the desire to experience itself. Others say it was loneliness, wishing for companionship. A few even whisper that it was peace, so deep that it needed contrast to understand its own stillness. Whatever it was, its dream gave birth to light, shadow, and the unending dance between them. When emotions dream, they recall their origins, and through them, the origins of everything else. They remember when magic was not yet magic, when the stars themselves trembled at the thought of being seen. They remember when creatures first discovered how to feel that tiny flicker of awareness that separates life from mere existence. Each emotion remembers its own first awakening, fear in the eyes of the first prey, joy in the laughter of the first sunrise, love in the touch of one soul recognizing another, anger in the refusal to vanish quietly into the void. The dream deepens, and these ancient feelings begin to weave together. You can almost picture it, the great loom of ooh, glowing threads of emotion twisting around one another, binding sky to sea, memory to flesh. The universe is not powered by physics alone. It runs on feeling. The heartbeat of a creature, the sigh of a tree, the whisper of wind through an abandoned city, all of it hums with emotion. There are places in ooh where this emotional dreaming leaks into reality. The forest of forgetting, where every leaf hums a different sorrow, or the valley of smiles, where the air glows faintly with laughter that never fades. In these places, the border between waking and dreaming thins. Travelers sometimes hear the voices of their own emotions, calling out to them not to frighten, but to guide. A wanderer filled with grief might find a stone glowing softly with warmth, a remnant of love's dream trying to comfort them. And sometimes, even without noticing, emotions reshape the waking world. The Candy Kingdom's bright colors pulse with the echoes of joy. The Fire Kingdom's lava flows with the remnants of anger learning purpose. The Ice Kingdom glimmers with the frozen reflection of love preserved but never gone. Each kingdom, each creature, each moment carries within it the residue of this shared dreaming. In this sense, every dream we have, every nightmare, and every peaceful vision is not ours alone. We are borrowing pieces of the universe's ongoing emotional sleep, touching the thoughts of ancient forces as they dream themselves into existence again and again. When emotions dream themselves, they create stories not in words or pictures, but in sensations that echo through the living world. These stories are retold endlessly, reshaped each time by the creatures who feel them. That is why so many beings in ooh mirror the nature of their emotions, the way Flame Princess embodies the bright, consuming truth of anger, or how BMO radiates the simple warmth of joy, reminding others of innocence that never truly disappears. Even the Lich, for all his destruction, carries the twisted shadow of fear not just as a weapon, but as a scar. His existence shows what happens when an emotion dreams too long without balance until it becomes trapped within itself. In this dreaming realm, emotions remember that they are siblings. None exists without the others. Joy may seem the gentlest, but without fear it would lose its depth, it would have nothing to contrast its light. Love would fade without anger's protective spark, and fear would dissolve without joy's steadying hand. The balance between them is what keeps the dream stable. When one grows too loud, the dream begins to tremble. When one fades, the others lose direction. And this, perhaps, reflects the cycles of Oo itself, the constant turning of balance, the eternal negotiation between chaos and calm. Some ancient magical scholars once described emotions as the silent guardians of the soul's weather. They believed that just as the sky cycles through storm and sunshine, the spirit must move through anger, joy, and sorrow to remain alive. Too much stillness, they said, invites decay. Too much motion invites madness. And so the dream of emotions continues shifting and shimmering, ensuring that no feeling ever stays forever. In this vision, the creatures of Oo are not merely emotional beings, they are dreamers within a larger dream. When Marceline sings softly to her bass, she isn't just expressing sadness, she's feeding the dream of love itself, reminding it of tenderness and loss. When Princess Bubblegum builds her candy people, she's constructing physical embodiments of joy's architecture, sweet, delicate, and fleeting. And when Finn stands on a hill after a battle, breathing through his pain and looking up at the stars, he's adding a note of understanding to anger's endless rebirth. There's a quiet comfort in thinking that every emotion we feel is part of something vast and ancient. It means that sadness is never truly lonely, that joy is never meaningless, and that even fear is not cruel, but protective, a soft hand, reminding us of our limits. In Oo, those limits often blur between the emotional and the magical. A broken heart can spark a kingdom's collapse. A single tear can awaken a sleeping forest. These are not coincidences, but reflections, emotions, remembering their power in the waking world. Some say that GOLB itself is what happens when the emotional dream becomes too dense, too complex to hold its own meaning. It is not hatred nor chaos, but emotion stripped of context, feeling without form. It absorbs everything because it remembers everything. When GOLB moves through the universe, it doesn't destroy. It unravels the emotional threads that bind reality, allowing them to be rewoven elsewhere. That might be why, after every cataclysm in Oo, something beautiful eventually grows. Anger burns, but it clears the ground for renewal. Fear collapses, but it teaches wisdom. Every emotional collapse is followed by gentle rebirth. In the hidden universe, this cycle is constant. When fear's shadow grows too deep, joy's light brightens to restore harmony. When love becomes possessive, anger arrives to defend freedom. When joy fades into complacency, fear whispers a reminder of fragility. This endless conversation between feelings is what keeps existence from falling still. It is what makes the dream of life continue one heartbeat at a time. And somewhere within that dream, perhaps emotions themselves experience longing, the quiet wish to understand what it means to feel as mortals do. For while they shape reality, they cannot truly live within it. They can only touch it through those who carry them. That might be why emotions choose vessels, why certain beings in Oo seem destined to represent specific aspects of feeling. They are the dream's translators, the bridge between the unseen and the seen. To imagine that every tear, every laugh, every burst of courage is a fragment of this greater dreaming gives the world an almost sacred softness. Even the moments that ache, heartbreaks, regrets, losses become part of something necessary and something cosmic. They feed the sleeping heart of existence, teaching it to feel more deeply. So when we sleep and our dreams twist through strange landscapes filled with joy, fear, and sorrow, maybe we are not imagining at all. Maybe we are visiting that other side, the place where emotions dream themselves, and through us, remember that they are alive. And as that dreaming deepens, Oo itself seems to sigh as though the land knows it is being remembered. The wind drifts gently over the plains, the stars blink in the slow rhythm, and the rivers hum with a sound that feels almost like breathing. Everything alive and everything that ever was moves in unison with the pulse of the emotional dream. It is quiet, unhurried, eternal. There are places where those who are sensitive enough can still feel it. The ruins of the ancient mushroom war cities hum faintly with the residue of grief, not the harsh kind, but the softened echo of remembrance. In the deeper woods, the moss glows a little brighter when laughter passes through, as if joy herself is watching from behind the trees. Even the empty wastelands that lie at the world's edge carry a whisper of anger turned into renewal, proof that nothing stays destructive forever. Every emotion, once faced, becomes fertile soil. Perhaps that is the final secret of ooze magic. Emotions are not separate from creation. They are creation. The bubbling volcanoes, the singing grasslands, the oceans that shimmer in impossible colors, each of them mirrors the moods of existence. The world breathes in emotion and exhales form. Magic is simply that breath made visible. When wizards conjure, they are not summoning something foreign. They are reshaping feeling. A fire spell is anger given shape. An illusion is joy playing dress-up. A protective ward is love taking form. The heroes of Finn, Jake, Marceline, Bubblegum, Simon have always been navigating not just adventures, but emotions that guide their destinies. Finn's courage is not the absence of fear, but its transformation into resolve. Jake's calm acceptance is joy distilled into wisdom. Marceline's melancholy songs are love stretched between lifetimes. Even Ice King, through his confusion and loss, teaches the painful beauty of longing. They are all parts of the same grand dream, experiencing the world on behalf of the emotions that birthed them. When we look at the multiverse of Adventure Time, it becomes even clearer. Each alternate world, each distorted reflection, is another version of the dream, an experiment in how feelings might express themselves. One world might be dominated by fear, another by joy. Some universes burn with anger's rebellion, while others sleep in love's stillness. All of them together form the emotional spectrum of existence. The multiverse, then, is the mind of emotion itself trying to understand what it means to feel in every possible way. If emotions could really speak, they might tell us that they are not separate from us at all. They have always been here, watching through our eyes, breathing through our chests, dreaming through our sleep. When we laugh, we are giving joy her voice. When we tremble, we let fear know it still has purpose. When we rage, we remind anger that it can protect as well as destroy. And when we love, we allow the universe to remember why it ever began dreaming in the first place. So in the stillness of night, when your thoughts start to slow and your heartbeat softens, imagine that somewhere deep within, the hidden universe of emotions is breathing with you. Every feeling you've ever known, the gentle, the painful, the wild, and the tender, is part of that same quiet cosmos. You are not a guest within it. You are one of its stars. Each sigh, each memory, each flicker of warmth you've carried through your days, all of it feeds the eternal dream. Even when you feel alone, even when you think your emotions are too heavy to hold, remember, they are never just yours. They belong to the same vast ocean that carries the hearts of every creature in ooh. They flow back into that infinite rhythm, and in doing so, they keep the universe awake, even as it sleeps. The dream of emotions is endless. It began before time, and it will continue after every star fades. Its song will outlast kingdoms, gods, and galaxies, and yet, within that enormity, there is peace. Because every heartbeat, yours, mine, and the world's, is part of the same music. So as you rest tonight, let your own emotions drift into that hidden universe. Let them wander where fear becomes wisdom, where joy paints the stars, where love hums in quiet devotion, and where anger burns softly like dawn. Feel how they settle, calm, and fold themselves into the greater dream, the same dream that made ooh and everything beyond it. Sleep now, traveler of feelings. The hidden universe still turns, slow and eternal, its light flickering through every soul that dares to feel deeply. The cosmos will keep breathing. The dream will keep singing. And somewhere beneath it all, the heart of ooh will whisper back to you. Good night.